I think we'll go ahead and get started, even though there's still people joining. I'm Monica Smith. I'm the co-creator of Revel 11, along with Joni Parsons. And we started Revel 11 over 5 years ago now. And we started it to find and host awesome speakers and to explore topics that are meaningful to us and to women. It's been quite a journey that Joni and I have shared, and it really has been meaningful to us. But I know I started 2020 in a total funk. I felt paralyzed, even about finding new topics for Revel 11. So when Britt's publisher sent me her manuscript a few months ago, I was like, wow, I need to pay attention to this coincidence. And I'm so happy that I did. Britt, welcome to Revel 11. And I so appreciate you for your work and for you being here this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be with everyone.
Yeah. Well, how do you think we should get this conversation started? I think I'd like to just hear about why you decided to write a book.
Okay, so the book is called The Science of Stuck, and the book is really about all of the misinformation that keeps us all stuck in this gap between knowing what we want to do, what we're supposed to do, what we should do, and the things that we actually do. And I'm a trauma therapist, so the answers I hear from my clients is I'm lazy, I'm crazy, I struggle with motivation, I struggle with procrastination. And through my own healing journey as just like a regular human stumbling about the world and then becoming a therapist, it's like we actually don't need to know all of the things to get unstuck. It's not easy, but with a few pieces of information about our brains, really, really powerful transformations are possible. And I've always wanted to write a book. I'm an introvert and I'm a bookworm. And since I've been 3, I've been scratching out fake books on crayons. But it was really in 2017 when I looked around this body of healing research that I had accumulated. And I'm like, oh my God, there's all this amazing stuff and nobody has access to it because it's all buried within the stack of self-help books we all have sitting. And no one has time or the inclination to read them all. I had to because I was in a I'm going to die if I don't figure this out situation. And so the book is really a synthesis of the best research. It's not like here's Britt's opinion on how to get unstuck. My book is really a synthesis of all of the best, most cutting edge things that I've found myself and with my clients to help us transform really long-standing patterns that keep us stuck. And it has nothing to do with laziness or unmotivation.
Great. Do you mind sharing a little bit like how you got stuck? Like what was your journey to the point where you realized, oh my God, I've got to change?
Yeah. So I think I've always been unstuck since I was little. I never really figured out how to human properly. I was never given tools on how to manage emotions, on how to develop fluency and understanding how my mind worked or how my body worked. And so I really struggled with a lot of really extreme, not everybody has to hit the rock bottoms that I did, but I had eating disorders. I had clinical depression, panic disorder, borderline personality disorder. I had drug addiction, relational chaos that would rival any, daytime talk show. And these behaviors had escalated to not the funny part is funny, haha. On paper, everything looked fine. It looked like I had a normal life. It looked like I went to Duke. I did well in school. What is Britt's problem? Why is she so crazy? And it really got to the point where I realized that, I got into amphetamines after a period of dabbling. And it's like, I am going to die. I'm not going to survive this trajectory that I'm on if I don't figure some things out. So after trying therapy after therapy after therapy after therapy, I found a therapist who was a trauma-informed, trauma-trained therapist. And then I got better. And then my life started to change. And then after I hit a period of, okay, I'm functional now this is what I want to do. So I quit my job in advertising as an advertising executive and became a therapist.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that and being so vulnerable. And what do you feel like was the thing that got you to change your behavior? Like, was it addressing trauma? And if so, what are some steps to take to address trauma? And do you need to go backwards? Like, do you need to look at your past in order to move forward?
I love all of those questions. And as a trauma specialist, I could talk about trauma all day long. And I wish I had some like movie of the week. Here was the moment of insight that I had that changed my life, and the burning bush moment it wasn't like that at all. It was more like, okay, I need to do something. I didn't know what to do, but I knew even before I started dealing with my trauma, I had to start dealing with my truth. And dealing with your truth is first and foremost. Whether or not you have trauma, whether or not you have mental illness, it doesn't matter. Whatever the thing is, getting unstuck has to start with a ferocious commitment to what is true. And what was true for me was, I'm not functional. I'm not okay. I have a lot of things that I've never dealt with, that I've never wanted to deal with. And so it wasn't until I started to admit what was true for me that the next step was, okay, now I think I have some trauma. Maybe I should deal with some of this. But truth precedes anything. Truth precedes any type of change, whether it's I want to start going to the gym or I want to start a new business. There are reasons why we don't. And if we don't get honest about the things that keep us stuck, we're going to stay stuck. So that was sort of how it was for me. What was your light bulb moment? There wasn't one. I just decided to stop lying to myself about myself. And those very tiny little micro shifts compounded and added up to a life shift. So that was that.
Okay, so I'm a little confused because you do talk. So this is the book, everyone.
Yes.
It's fabulous. But you talk in your book about you can't think your way out of being stuck.
Yeah.
And so by finding your truth, I feel like that is an internal exercise where you're really thinking. So
yes.
help me understand that concept.
Yes. Because I did, our thinking, we can't think our way out of stuck because there are fundamental physiological nervous system mechanics. It wasn't like I came to my truth and then I changed. Thank you for clarifying that. It was more like I came to my truth that something has to change. What do I do next? Then the next step was, okay, I have to deal with trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is fundamentally a brain that is having difficulty metabolizing and digesting our life experiences. It's exactly like the physical digestion process. You don't have to eat contaminated food to have indigestion. You don't need to have some high level tragedy happen to you to have trauma. We all experience indigestion to a degree. We're all going to experience trauma to a degree. And the reason we can't think our way out of stuck is because when our brain is in shutdown mode, what we call procrastination or laziness or lack of motivation, that's a physiological survival response. It's automatic. We don't get a say, just like digestion. I can't affirm my way out of indigestion. I can't say, I just want to think positive. Like I can digest this food. I can digest this food. It's like we have to work physiologically with our digestion. We need to work physiologically with these patterns that keep us stuck. And knowing that it's a survival response that causes procrastination, it doesn't excuse it. A lot of people get mad at me. They're like, are you saying that because it's an automatic brain response that everything's okay? No, but we procrastinate because our brain perceives threats. We may not think we should be perceiving a threat, but again, our bodies do these things unconsciously, and our brains are wired for two things and only two things: danger and safety. Productivity, spiritual goals, entrepreneurial goals, relational goals. Our brain, those are higher level functions. Our brain's first function is to keep us alive. And if we don't know how survival physiology works, we're going to stay stuck.
Okay, so help me on a practical level. So let's just take the topic of self-esteem and say, maybe trauma in the past had led to low self-esteem, but you feel stuck, maybe because you're afraid of the results will be failures. And so if I'm stuck, do I need to address self-esteem first? Like how to describe that process?
Where do we start? Yeah.
Yes. Where do you start?
So, a lot of people say, I really struggle with self-love and self-care and self-image, and those are important things. But first, the first question is not, how do I learn to have better self-esteem? The first question is, what are the people, places, and things and thoughts that help my body feel safe? I was never asked that. Were you ever asked as a kid, hey, how do you feel safe? How do you know when your body feel safe? Like you don't, we are not trained how to do this. As kids, we're not trained how to do this. Unless you go to a trauma therapist, you're likely never going to get asked, Where in your body do you feel safe? What people, places, thoughts, and things help your brain cue, we're safe, we're not being attacked by a cheetah, we're okay.
And
And
can you
so,
be really specific about like what an answer to that question would look like? So does that mean that you're in your apartment and you feel safe in your apartment? And, you know, like I like having these particular people around me, so I should invite those, you know, like just help me go through that experience.
sure. Well, it's difficult in these pandemic-y times where it's not safe everywhere, and it's really difficult to access feelings of safety. And being home is no longer a safe place, because being home is where we've all been stuck for 2 years. But it's, you know, when I'm with my dog, I might put my hand on my dog's head and then I feel a relaxation in my stomach. Or when I'm talking to a good friend, I notice that my throat loosens up and it's not as constricted and I feel heat in my hands. Or conversely, if I'm talking to somebody who I don't feel safe, I'm going to constrict and I'm going to hold and my breath's going to shorten. And self-esteem is really a function of accessing safety consistently enough where we develop a sense of internal trust. You can't really have self-esteem without an internal bank of safety and internal trust. Self-esteem sort of takes care of itself once you learn how to access people, places, thoughts, and things that help you feel safe. And it's, you know, we're all pretty well attuned to when we feel like crap, but we're not so attuned to the things that make us feel functional, that make us feel capable. We're not trained to pay attention to when we're having a good day. Well, what does having a good day feel like in your body? You know, our minds live inside physical brains and our brains live inside physical bodies. And so if we're not taught how the body works, that would be like getting in a car and not knowing you have to hit the gas. It's like, there's nothing wrong with the car. You need to hit the gas and turn it on. And we're not taught that the body has a gas tank and a brake and a gas pedal and an emergency brake. And you don't need to be a neuroscientist, just like you don't need to be an auto mechanic to drive a car. You don't need to be a neuroscientist to start understanding the basics of the brain so you can get yourself moving.
Okay, so that makes it sound like self-awareness is key. And so are there exercises, you know, I'm guessing that like having a mindfulness practice would be really helpful to be in greater touch with those feelings of safety. But are there tips that you would give us, or even an exercise that we could do right now about how to get in touch with those feelings of safety?
Absolutely. I mean, you can make a list. Again, people, places, thoughts, and things. And this could be, you know, when I think the thought, I stink, I'm lazy, and I'm a procrastinator, that's not going to create feelings of safety. That's going to create feelings of shame. Shame is going to create more shutdown, which is going to amplify the cycle. If you can start with an inventory of what are my resources, and we all have different degrees of accessibility and resources. People who have no resources are not going to be able to access safety because they're not in a safe environment, but that doesn't mean that there's something broken or wrong about them. So let's start with what are your actual choices for people, places, thoughts, and things. If not safe, what people, places, thoughts, and things help you feel a little bit less bad or a little bit more like yourself? What does that look like? What music do you like to listen to? What food do you like to eat? What places do you like to go? When I take a walk in the park with my dog, I know that I am going to feel a little bit less bad about myself and about the world. Great. And this sounds super like Pollyanna, saccharine, like just do the good thing. It's not. It's really powerful with mindfulness. And we know from the body of research, mindfulness is powerful. Where we focus our mind expands, where we focus our attention, it grows. So if we start paying attention to what's working, then we can start creating a bigger feedback loop of more of that. And it's not ignoring what's not working. It's just saying, you know, in our experiences, we have resources. What are they? Let's do an inventory. And how can I begin to use them? And then just start paying attention to your body. You don't even have to change anything. Just notice, when are you constricted? When are you more relaxed? Those are the building blocks of really powerful transformations. You don't need to take giant leaps to get unstuck. It's these very small micro adjustments over time, and they add up very quickly. And I am living proof of that.
Is that what you mean by, you say in the book that the words lazy and unmotivated are completely false? Describe that.
Yes. And again, I'm not excusing inertia. Nobody's kids get to say, I heard Britt say that I can't go to school because I'm in survival brain, so I don't have to go to school. It's like, no, I did not say that. Did not say that. An explanation is not a synonym for an excuse, right? An explanation allows us to understand something for the purpose of changing it, right? So lazy is a kind of a moral judgment. It's what we've decided to shame ourselves with. But lazy is not a physiological function. When we're on the couch and we're glued to episode 10 of our show, when what we want to be doing is something else, it's because our brain is going into a freeze response. That's not an excuse. It's just really important information. If my brain is stuck in freeze, like my foot is stuck on the gas or on the brake pedal, there are things I can do to help it get out of freeze. And that's where you go to your inventory. Like if you're stuck on the couch, a really good way to get out of freeze is to get some ice cubes and to stick your face in a bowl of ice cold water. That will physiologically shock your way out of a freeze response. And again, it's not magic, but what we need are just little bits of space in between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl says, in between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space is our power to make choices. We're on autopilot so much that we're just going and we're doing and we're reacting, and we're not consciously making choices. Things like knowing your brain is in freeze. Cold can help your brain get out of freeze, ironically. And so that's a brain hack. Or like essential oils. If you smell something, that'll help cue your brain, hey, we're not in this dissociative fog. And then you'll get a little bit of space where you can maybe make a different choice. Again, it's not magic, and it's not like smell the oil and never procrastinate again. But if we know physiologically we can intervene, then we can create space to make better choices.
Okay, I love this line of thinking about sitting up, because we can all relate to this, right? We're sitting on the couch. We know that we should be working on your project. So like, what are some other tips besides putting your face in a bowl of ice cube?
Really extreme one. I don't do that one because I personally don't enjoy that one, but it does work.
Okay, I like the essential oils.
Essential oils are good. So if you're stuck on the couch and your self-talk sounds like, I know I should be doing the thing, but I'm going to watch one more episode of it's like, that's a lie. And this is where getting ferociously honest comes into mind. You're not going to get up off the couch after one more episode. I know that, you know that, so let's not lie about it. A better way to self-talk is, you know what? I don't want to get up off the couch. I'm actually afraid if I get going on this project, I'm going to fail and that nobody will like me anymore. And everyone will see that I'm a failure. That's truth, and truth is powerful. If that's what's true for me, then I can start to look at that and go, okay, well, then I can start evaluating that. How true is that? What are my options for combating this thought? Who is available to me? Again, what people, places, thoughts, and things can help me come out of this shame spiral that I'm in. But when we say, oh, I'm just so lazy, that's not accurate, and it's not helpful. And it's not even accurate, it's not even true. It's, I am stuck because there are benefits to staying stuck. We don't have to risk failure. We don't have to risk rejection. It takes a lot of energy to go out and make changes. Energy conservation is a survival function of the brain. My brain would rather stay and sleep than get up and run 6 miles. And so knowing that these are actual things allow us to start implementing different changes. You can only be honest with yourself so long before you're going to get sick of yourself being stuck and you're going to start to do different things. When we lie to ourselves, we actually perpetuate the state of stuck. When we shame ourselves, we perpetuate the state of stuck. So if you're stuck on the couch, ask yourself, what's actually going on for me? What's the benefit to this behavior? All behavior has benefits or we wouldn't do it. We may not like the answer, but once we get really honest, then we can start accessing tools and resources for change. But so it's not that you're lazy.
Describe the process of, say, the essential oils. So you're sitting on the sofa, you're feeling stuck. You might be doing a little, I'm so lazy, the self-talk. But then you decide, okay, I'm gonna pull out some essential oils. Is that just like a trigger for your brain to do some? I'm not sure I understand that.
Well, there's 1,000 ways you can use essential oils, but like when you smell something, think of if you were being chased by a lion, you're not going to be able to smell the flowers on the side of the field, because when you're in survival mode, it's like you're not going to digest the bagel you had for breakfast. You're not going to smell the flowers on the side of the field. So just by implementing a sense, that's going to help deactivate your amygdala response. So it's not going to magic you. It's not like, oh, look, now I can stop binge watching Inventing Anna or whatever the show is that you're into. It's like, okay, that's just going to create a little bit of space where my brain for a second is going to be a little less activated. Okay, there's a reason that I'm not doing this right now. What's the reason? Okay, I'm really afraid that I'm going to spend the kids' college funds on this new project, and I'm really afraid of getting started. Okay, then validate, that makes sense. So you're combining a sensory tool, which is called bottom-up work, with a thought tool, which is top-down. Like you can't think your way out of stuck. You can't just like wave your oils around and get out of stuck. We actually need to combine sensory-based inputs, smell, sight, temperature, colds, with the thought work. So when you combine a sensory tool with a thought tool, then you've got a much more powerful resource for getting yourself to take the next right step, whatever that is. And it's important that you only focus on the next little step. If I focus on what I need to do in 6 months, I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm not going to solve a problem for a 7,000 person company while I'm sitting on my couch dreaming of the company.
But could that one little step, sorry to interrupt, could that one little step be sitting on the couch and then walking over and sitting at your desk? Like, is it that little of a step?
It could be from laying on your couch to sitting on your couch. And again, these micro movements sound so simple and so saccharine and like, okay, Britt, really? Like I'm going to make changes by going from prone to seated? Well, yes, because once you're sitting on your couch with your feet on the floor, you're going to create a little bit more space. And then maybe you stand up and walk over to your desk. And then maybe that's all you do for the day. You know, Martha Beck, who is a brilliant Harvard educated thought leader. I love her work. She calls them turtle steps. And what she says in her work is a turtle step is the least I can do divided in half. And it's also the only way things get done. So a turtle step forward is preferable to no steps forward. One teeny micro step forward, going from laying down to sitting up, or maybe you sit up and then you turn the TV off. And then maybe you sit at your desk and then maybe you open your computer. You know, again, it sounds, I was actually horrified after many years of expensive trauma therapy that these are the building blocks of powerful transformations. Again, if you're actually unsafe, if you're in a war, if you're under oppression, if you are in poverty, none of these things are going to work because you're actually unsafe. But assuming that you're in a safe enough environment with enough access to your basic resources and your basic needs being met, these teeny tiny little tools are going to be the things that get you moving. And again, we're very quick, high level, high functioning intellectual people are like, that's stupid. Like it's actually not stupid, it's science, but it feels stupid because we don't do it.
I'm guessing that the process of ritual is also pretty powerful. Like, you know, so say you have the sensory input of, you know, smell, and then just the ritual of sitting up and walking to your desk. Like if you start that as a ritual, I wonder if that in the long run helps you down a path that is going to be more productive.
Yes. And I have a whole section in the book on ritual because I am such a big advocate of it doesn't have to be a prescriptive religious, like, here's the book on what your ritual, like whatever your thing is. When I was writing the book, I had a ritual. I put on the same perfume. I put on the same sweater. I put on the same jewelry. I sat in the same spot. And even on the days where I had nothing, like nothing but blank space and a blank screen, having that ritual primes the pump. And so even if your ritual is just when you wake up in the morning, you change out of your sleep clothes into your work sweats, you know, like during the pandemic, I had my sleeping sweats and my my nice sweats. Very simple little shifts, like ritualized, consistent, do the same thing. I have this is the oil I use anytime I give a talk, and it's called Brain Power. And there's nothing magical about this particular oil. It could be anything. You could smell an orange, but it's consistency with the same sensory inputs over time paired with a decision which is ritual, creates a new neural pathway. And now my brain is just used to, when it smells this thing and I put the sweater on, it knows it's time to write. And so ritual is a very powerful hack for getting unstuck. So if there's a thing you want to do, create a ritual, eat the same thing before you do it, listen to a 30-second clip of a song before you do it. Really, really powerful for helping our brain transition from I'm stuck in this rut to, okay, now it's time for me to do this thing. And we can use the power of ritual to help us get unstuck.
I am in complete agreement. I did a Revel 11 session on the topic of ritual because it's become so important in my life. And for me, mine is a morning ritual where I unroll my yoga mat, and all I commit to is 3 minutes of breathing, sitting on my mat. But I know, because every single time that feels so good, those 3 minutes, I keep going. And then I incorporate, movement, and it ends up usually being like an hour, but it's just those 3 minutes is a reinforcement of feeling safe and good.
Yes. And if you said to yourself, well, this is 3 minutes, 3 minutes is stupid, what kind of changes am I going to get in 3 minutes? You'll psych yourself out. Yeah. And then you'll miss out on the medicinal magic of a 3-minute practice very quickly turns into an hour without even thinking about it. And
it's okay if it's only 3 minutes.
Yes.
It still feels good.
Exactly. Yeah. I love ritualized, consistent, small, whatever you think this, whenever people tell me like, okay, well, I'm going to get out my book and I'm going to read for 20 minutes. I'm like, how about you read 1 page?
Yeah.
Make it an easy get, because we psych ourselves out when we shoot for things, even things we think we should be able to do, especially in a pandemic climate where the world is in chaos. Our brains are very busy focusing on doomsday, and it's not safe. And there's so much uncertainty. To expect your brain to be able to focus like it would in the pre-pandemic days is not accurate, nor is it helpful. So make it the smallest possible thing you can do so you can guarantee a win. And those wins compound and add up over time. Very quickly, they do.
I think you just started to answer this question that came in from the audience, which is a fabulous question, Helen. Does changing negative rituals work as well? Putting in a crank in the pattern?
Say more.
Well, this is in the chat. So how do we change negative rituals?
Oh, I see. Like okay, so I'll use an example. And this was true when I was coming out of my chemical addictions. And I've actually worked as an inpatient, drug rehab therapist. So if you have a longstanding pattern of whatever, just change anything. If your morning routine is I wake up, I brush my teeth, I use the bathroom, I get dressed first. Put your pants on in a different order. Sleep with your head on the opposite side of the bed. Our brains autopilot is really like the handmaiden of staying stuck. We get into trouble and we get into ruts because we're so habituated and we're on autopilot. Any type of shift in a ritual that you do, whether it's changing the clothes order that you put on, if you take that road to work, go that way to work. It's like shaking a snow globe. Any type of change will give you a little bit more space, again, between stimulus and response, and that's where your power to make choices lies. So changing negative rituals is very powerful. How do you change a negative ritual? Whatever you do something different.
Okay, let's just take an example of having that cocktail at 5 o'clock in the evening.
Yes.
So it comes around to end of the day, you're starting to look forward to that drink, say you want to quit drinking. What is that change?
So we could take a behavioral approach, or we could take, there's a lot of different ways to do it. For something like the drink at 5, I would start with, you decide to have the 5 o'clock drink at like noon. So noon is where the intervention is. But, if we're talking pure behavioral shift, if you take the highway home and you get home and you change into your comfies and then you pour the cocktail, take a different route home and then change into a different outfit. That alone is not necessarily going to work. It will help. But the real question is, why do you need the drink at 5? What's the pain that the 5 o'clock drink is numbing? And so with people who are trying to break this particular habit, I'll say, you and I both know you're going to have that cocktail. Like today is not the day you're not going to do it. Fine. That's truth. Let's change it from 5 o'clock to 5:05. Spend 5 minutes journaling about everything that bothered you during the day, and then take the drink. At least build in a little bit of space for what's actually going on. And then the next night, maybe it's 5 minutes of getting honest with yourself and then trying to use a resource. And then maybe you have the drink at 5:10.
And so the journaling is not about why you want that drink or anything about shaming yourself around drinking. It's more like just what's going on for you right then and there.
What's true. We are experts at obfuscating and hiding from what is true about us and what is true for us. We're trained, especially as women, not to know what we know, not to want what we want. God forbid we have desires and needs, you know, and if you have children, then it's my life exists for the kids. And who am I to have wants and needs and desires? And whether or not you act on them is not the question. The question is, what is true for you? Where are your pain points? And we're also very quick, especially if you're in a high functioning, high safety, high privilege environment. I don't have a right to feel upset about anything because at least my life isn't as bad as what's happening over there. And that'll get a 5 o'clock cocktail habit going very quickly, because while perspective is helpful, yes, I have it better than they do. And that's important to keep in mind. Perspective allows for the and. I have it pretty good and I'm still in pain. And my children's relationship is still causing me pain. And I hate my job. I know I'm lucky to have a job and I hate it. And so making room for multiple perspectives instead of, well, they have it worse, therefore I don't have a right to my pain, that will create patterns of longstanding stuck to whatever degree. And so we have to get honest and make it safe, at least internally, to get honest with ourselves about ourselves. Like even the most amazing neuro hacks won't work if you're not being true about what's bothering you and what's upsetting you. And that sounds, again, really simple, but for, I don't have kids, but I work with a lot of moms and I have a lot of mom friends and they all say the same thing. I would die for my kids. I've never known a love like this. And there are some days where a part of me kind of resents this mothering thing and I don't want to do it today. Like, okay, that doesn't mean you have to run away and abandon them. It just means that's a pain point that needs attention and you have a right to your pain. It's a backwards affirmation, but it's really important to start with, I have a right to my pain, even though I have perspective on what I do have, that's good, and not getting into this toxic positivity thing. And then what are my choices? What are my resources? What are my tools?
Okay, this is fascinating because it's kind of throwing a lot of what we've heard over the last several years about the power of positive thinking. In fact, I'm sure that we've had sessions on the power of positive thinking, but I know, like, we've all probably tried gratitude journals because they've become so popular. And I know that when I'm feeling good, gratitude comes really naturally. And I feel great when I'm writing in my gratitude journal. And if I'm not feeling great, it falls so flat. And so I think I understand what you're saying about it has to be true.
It has to be true. And it may be, I'm grateful for my job. And I'm not anti the power of positive thinking. Let me say that very clear. Like that's a body of work. There's room at the table for almost every body of wellness work. It's, are you taking the right medicine at the right dose for the right injury? And so if you're going to do a gratitude list, fine. But on the other side of the paper, write an anger list and then make a list of the things you're sad about. And then make a list of the things, it's like, we need to have multiple perspectives. Gratitude at the expense of truth is just gaslighting yourself, which is going to create more stuck. So we need to have gratitude ands, right? So on your gratitude journal, fold the page in half. Here are the things I'm grateful for, and here are the things that I'm upset about, and make space for both. Right? Like positivity without authenticity is just poison that's going to make us all feel stuck and ashamed, and we're all going to spin our wheels and go nowhere. So I'm not saying yay negativity, I'm saying yay authenticity. And the truth is nothing is all good and most things aren't all bad. We need the both. It's like the art of the and, the A-N-D, the and.
I love that because so often doing something like thinking of what you're grateful for and if nothing's coming to your mind at the moment, then it turns into shaming, because we feel like, oh, well, we could be in poverty. We could be in Ukraine. I mean, like whatever that shaming is. It also makes me better understand what you were saying about the reason that you wrote this book is to kind of consolidate all of those learnings that you have seen. Because, I've read so many self-help books, and there are pieces in each one. So it kind of sounds like you tried to consolidate.
It's my cherry tree. This book is like the book I wish I had had. It's like, here's the best of the trauma research. Here's just what you need to know about trauma. Here's the best of the boundaries research. Here's what you need to know about boundaries, about anxiety, about habits, about friendships, about intimacy. Most people, I mean, I love diving into the abyss of the psyche. I'm a therapist, but most people don't want to do that. And when I was neck deep in my own crap, I didn't want to do that. I wanted bottom lines. I wanted just tell me what I need to know to get moving. You don't walk up to a burning building and like ponder the nature of the fire. It's like, you get the people out of the building. We'll figure out the hows and the whys and the origins later. And right now, during this time of mental health and global crisis, we don't have time for introspection and analysis. And let's go dive in childhood and figure out everywhere that things went wrong. To your question earlier, no, you don't have to do that. But we do need to have some basic pieces of information so we can get moving, because we're no good to ourselves, the people we love, or the world at large by staying stuck in shame with misinformation and myths that are getting us nowhere. We're spinning our wheels and going nowhere. It's exhausting.
Okay, so talk about those myths then. So what are those little nuggets that we need to know?
So the first one, and this is the biggest one, is that mental health is not purely a mindset issue. Like, mental health shouldn't be called mental health because it's not about your mind. Mental health is a physiological process. It's about what's going on in your nervous system. It's about these fight, flight, freeze responses. It's about your 10th cranial nerve. If your body thinks you're in danger, will hit the brakes of your body and you're going to feel completely shut down and paralyzed. And you're not going to know that you have a nerve in your head that does that. It's literally like driving a car and not knowing that if you hit this, you do that. And if you hit this, you do that. So the first and foremost myth is that mental health is a physiological process. So we need our thinking work, but we also need the body work. We need both. And then the second myth is that there's such a thing as unmotivation. It's like, there's no such thing as an unmotivated person. Our brains are always motivated. If you're alive, your brain is motivated, and it's only going to be motivated by one of two paths. It's either going to be motivated to do what you want it to do, to make your choices, to achieve your goals, to, live your best life, or it's going to be motivated to survive a threat, whether real or imagined, whether it's a historical thing or a future fear, it doesn't matter. Your brain is primed to either choose if it feels safe or survive if it feels unsafe. So your brain is either motivated by choice or by safety. So when people say, I just have no motivation, what they mean is, right now my brain is perceiving a threat, and I have no motivation to do that because all my motivation juice is being used for this. Okay, cool. That's important to know. Great. So do you feel unmotivated and you're stuck in off? Or do you feel that your motivation safety cues are keeping you revved up? Because most of us either do one or we ping pong between go, 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 collapse, go, go, go. I'm so anxious and I'm so wired. I can't ever seem to slow down, or I'm so fatigued and so stuck on off that I can't get going, or we ping pong. Those are survival responses. Those are not mindset problems. And there are interventions that you can use that don't require you to shame yourself or dig for memories. You don't have to be abused to, qualify for this. We all have brains, and our brains all do this. So there's no such thing as lack of motivation.
Any other myths we should be aware of?
Oh, so many myths. Excuse me. Well, we know now laziness is a moral judgment. Laziness is not a physiological reality. And again, it doesn't excuse anything. Nothing excuses behavior, but it does explain it. And the other big myth is that there are no benefits to staying stuck. You know, again, I'll use a very extreme example. I could very easily have said to my therapist, I don't know why I keep doing this. I keep using these drugs and dating these crazy people. And it's just destroying me. And it's destroying my life. And I'm getting nothing out of it. And if she were to say to me, which she did, well, okay, well, what are you getting out of this? Nothing. This is just horrible. I hate it. I hate that I'm doing it. Yes, it was destroying me. Yes, it was destroying my life. All behavior has benefits. All behavior is a function. Might not be a good function, but my behavior had a really important function that it kept me distracted from dealing with some things that I didn't want to deal with, right? And so if we can name the function of the behavior, we can actually start to change it. So it is a complete myth that the things that we say we don't like have no inherent value. They do. Again, it doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's functional. So let's figure out the function, then we can get moving.
Meaning, okay, so then the function is having to go back to the original trauma, meaning
that was it for me. It might not be that deep for everybody. I mean, sometimes it can be as simple as, I don't want to deal with my truth because the fact is I'm just going to make stuff up. I'm unhappy in my marriage. Well, okay, if you're unhappy in your marriage, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to get a divorce and leave the kids and blow up your life. But a lot of people will run very far to a variety of people, places, and things and substances to avoid things like, I don't really like this life that I'm in, or, this job isn't doing it for me. I need it to provide for my family, but I don't like it. And a lot of people don't want to know what they know. And again, it doesn't have to be as extreme as mine, which was, I have these high level traumas that I don't want to deal with. It could be something as simple as, sometimes I don't like my kids. And people will keep themselves very busy because they don't want to feel like a bad parent. If we can make space for even the yucky truths, then we can address them and we can deal with them. And it takes so much more time to avoid our realities than to just address and work through our realities.
Okay, and so to continue the example of, say, you realize that you're not really happy with your current life. Say you're not happy with your marriage right now. So you're saying that just identifying the issue is you can start to get more motivated in life just even by identifying that, or do you need to solve it first?
Well, you can't solve it because some problems are not solvable and some problems are too complex to have easy answers, but there is you'll feel it in your body. When you name what's true for you, you'll feel like you'll see it. If you have a safe enough person to say, hey, I don't like this marriage, it sounds like that's super scary, but you'll feel relief. It doesn't mean you have to do anything. Like that's the first step in a long process that may or may not include a change, but just naming what's true for us actually produces a reduction in stress hormones and an increase in efficacy and a decrease in cortisol and all of the things that are contributing to these physical responses. The truth is powerful. Like the truth will set you free is not just a pithy whatever. It doesn't mean you have to do anything, but if you're asking for what are the steps, step one, can you allow yourself to know what you know? And Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who's one of the trauma authorities, and he wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is like the Bible for trauma therapists. He says it takes a tremendous amount of courage to know what you know. We become experts at hiding from what we know. And again, if you can take out what does it mean? It doesn't have to mean anything today. Today, it might just mean you name it. Today, it might just be that in your private thoughts between you, a safe friend, or you and your journal, you start to identify what's true for you. And that's a really powerful tool that is available to everybody. And it's scary.
Any thoughts? One of the questions from the audience is, any thoughts on NeuroLinguistic programming? And can you also define that for people?
That's not my area of work, so I cannot speak to that.
Okay, no worries. Can we go back to sitting on the sofa?
Yeah.
And your example of kind of the aromatherapy. What are some other tools, and the ice cubes? Are there other tools that you might recommend? So like say neither of those resonate for someone. Is there anything else that we can go to?
And again, all of these biohacks won't work if you're lying to yourself. So the first tool, if you're on the couch, just name what's true for you. This is true with, with my eating disorder behavior, when I'm like, I'm just going to have one of the things. It's like, I know I'm going to have 20 of them and then I'm going to purge. And it's like, we have to start with what's true. Then the hacks will work. If you're stuck on your couch and you don't want to move, just rolling back and forth and like constricting your muscles can help. We want to get people back in their bodies because that's where all the movement and the change happens. But again, smelling an oil and constricting your muscles is not going to work if you're telling lies to yourself about yourself. I don't want to get up and start this project because it's going to be so much work. That's a lie. If you pick one micro turtle step to do, then it's okay. I really don't want to get up off this couch. This project is really scary. And then here's the art of the and I only have to do 3 minutes. I only have to answer one email, not 20. So if you can, in your thought life, boil it down to something where you feel like you can get to a yes, then smell the oil and constrict your muscles and, roll back and forth and stretch. And that is, again, top down, bottom up. We need the thinking work and we need the body work.
There is a question that is interesting. What about neurodiversity issues like ADHD? How does that come into play and affect things like procrastination?
Sure. And I'm not an ADHD expert. I'm also not anti-medication. Like if meds are granted, there are a lot of people that push unnecessary meds and meds are tricky, but I'm not anti-med. If you need meds, take them. I do. I take psych meds. It's like you wear glasses, it's like whatever helps you navigate your physiology. If it works and you like it, do it. So with ADHD, for some people, in some cases, medication helps their brain reorient. But it's the same dilemma, right? The ADHD brain is quicker to be in these safety survival adaptations. And so sometimes meds are needed. And autism is not my expertise at all. So I can't speak to that intelligently whatsoever. So, my body work focuses on people who generally are in a place where they can manage themselves. Now, if you have high level trauma, if you have, and whatever your thing is, ask yourself again, if we know the fundamental issue is safety and danger, regardless of how it manifests in the brain, what are the resources? What are the choices? And then here's another question. What are you willing to do? There are a lot of things I'm not willing to do, even though my goal might be to do this. I know I'm not willing to do X, Y, and Z on my list. I am willing to do this thing. So start with what is available to me? And then what am I actually willing to do? And not to shame yourself for it.
How do you manage flow of the day? So there was a question about having super high cortisol in the morning and then it goes away by noon. And I also, it's like I have so much energy in the morning and by the afternoon, I can't get off the couch. So do you have any recommendations do you just kind of maximize that and try to get all of your work done in the morning? Or do you try to overcome kind of the downtimes as well?
So not everyone has the luxury of accommodating their physiology. I'm the same way. I'm great in the morning. By 2 o'clock, I'm toast. Like there's just nothing, and I don't write in the afternoon because nothing good comes out of me. So if you have the choice, this starts with what are my resources? If you have the choice to accommodate how your physiology is wired by kind of making adjustments to your life, cool, do that. And if you don't, then we have to work with the physiology. And then it's how do I sort of triage this? What are the most important things that I know I'm going to need the maximum brain power for? I have to prioritize those things first. But again, what we do is we shame ourselves. Like, I hate that my cortisol is high in the morning. Okay, well, that's not helping. And that's actually exacerbating the problem. And so if we can start with, okay, this is what it is right now. Doesn't mean this is what it's going to be forever, but knowing that this is how it is for me today, what are my choices? And then what am I willing to do about it? Those are big, big questions, and they're really powerful. And they seem so insignificant that most of us don't do it.
Yeah. And how about troubles identifying your truth? Yeah. There have been a couple of questions about either trouble identifying your truth or how does depression interfere with identifying your truth?
Sure. And it's tricky because first of all, it's scary to know what we know. And then it's like, okay, well, when I started my process, I didn't even know what kind of food I liked because I was such an expert in controlling and managing and I didn't know what kind of music I liked. I had no clue what my truth was. So then you start with the process of elimination. Okay, well, what do I know is like not my thing? And you can actually look at your triggers to find out what's true. A great way to figure out what's true for you is envy and jealousy. These are not like ideal character traits. However, they're powerful for pointing you towards your desires. Envy is just a suboptimal expression of an authentic desire. I know for me, I can look at my scrolling behavior. There are certain things that make me feel like I suck at life. There's like, I don't cook, so I don't compare myself to like the cooking people. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. They can do this with that. That's awesome. But there are other people, when I look at them, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so jealous of what they're doing. And I wish I could be doing that. Great. I could shame myself for comparing. What's wrong with you? You know, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. Like women empowering women. You should be happy for her. She's your sister. I am. And okay, great. That envy is pointing me towards my desire. So if you're not sure what you're into, great. Start with what are you triggered by? Triggers are great for pointing you towards little trails to what's true for you. So if you can take everything with curiosity instead of shame, like, oh, wow, isn't it curious that I did X, Y, and Z, but I spent 4 hours researching, so-and-so celebrity behavior. That's a thing I do, which is interesting. And it's like, okay, well, which celebrity am I researching? What is it about them? What is it about their life that is like calling to me? And there are these little breadcrumbs of information about ourselves. Your browser history is a great one. So if you're not sure what you're about, look at your browser history. You're going to get some information and get really curious without shame. Like what's going on here? Is it possible that this is a thing? And then not to get too lost in the weeds. You don't have to analyze everything.
I love that tip. That is such a positive tip that I think that we could all kind of explore in our day-to-day behavior. We are already out of time. I can't believe it.
Wow, that went fast.
I know that went so fast. Britt, I so appreciate your time. I am pretty jazzed right now. I'm feeling very motivated. So thank you, everyone.